Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Squid here, back with another video on the latest 5-star character that is about to come out, Fu Xuan. Now Fu Xuan is a character that follows the path of preservation with a quantum typing, and her unique ability is to siphon damage away from your whole team onto herself, reducing the amount of damage that your allies take. Now in this video I'm going to quickly dive into her skills, what her skill rotation and ultimate rotation would look like. I'm going to give you tips on how to use her in battle. I'm also going to cover her best relic sets and light cones, as well as free-to-play options, and also give you some considerations around team building around her with your own account. Now, if you all like the content that you're seeing, or you like this guide video after you've watched it, please drop a like and a subscribe, and drop a comment in the comment section letting me know if I've missed anything, or how your pulls went for Fu Xuan, or what you think about the character. I would love to hear what you have to say. You can also check me out live on twitch.tv at 8 PM Australian Eastern Daylight Time every day. So come drop by, say hi, and let's get on with the video. Diving deeper into Fu Xuan's kit, we're going to explore how her abilities enable her to play into her role as a supporting tank within your team composition. Starting off with her skill, which her whole kit will revolve around. Fu Xuan's skill regenerates 30 energy for her, as well as providing 2 buffs for your whole team. The first buff, called Matrix of Prescience, will distribute 65% of the damage that all other team members receive to Fu Xuan for 3 turns. While affected by this buff, team members will also gain a second buff called Knowledge Effect, which will increase their respective HP by 6% of Fu Xuan's max HP, and their crit rate by 12%. Her basic attack applies a single unit of break and regenerates 20 energy for Fu Xuan, while dealing 50% of Fu Xuan's max HP as quantum damage. Now, thirdly, her ultimate is an AoE ultimate that deals 2 units of break to all enemies. At level 10, this does 100% of Fu Xuan's max HP to all enemies, and obtains 1 trigger count for Fu Xuan's talent HP restore effect. Now, what HP restore effect is this? This HP restore effect is listed in Fu Xuan's talent, which we will now go to. Fu Xuan's talent states that while Fu Xuan is alive and active in battle, misfortune avoidance is applied to the entire team. With misfortune avoidance, all allies take 18% less damage. So with Fu Xuan in your team, in any fight, allies will automatically take 18% less damage as long as Fu Xuan is alive. Secondly, when Fu Xuan's current HP falls below 50% of her max HP, HP restore will be triggered for Fu Xuan. So this is the trigger count that your ultimate gives you. This will restore her HP by 90% of the amount of HP that she is currently missing. This effect cannot be triggered if she receives a killing blow. Now, this effect will possess 1 trigger count by default at the start of the battle, but can hold up to a maximum of 2 trigger counts. So the way to obtain additional trigger counts will be through using your ultimate. Thus, Fu Xuan's ultimate rotation is quite important to keeping her alive as she soaks all the damage from your allies. Fu Xuan's basic attack in the overworld is a simple basic attack that deals 1 unit break to all enemies of the quantum type and starts the battle. She also has a unique technique, which is an enhancement technique that I'm a very big fan of. Her technique, when used, will provide all team members with a barrier lasting for 20 seconds in the overworld. This barrier will block all enemy attacks, and the team will not enter battle when attacked. Entering battle while the barrier is active will have Fu Xuan automatically activate Matrix of Prescience at the start of the battle, lasting for 2 turns. So by using her technique, you will automatically have her Matrix of Prescience and Knowledge effect buffs at the start of your fight straight away before Fu Xuan even uses her skill, which is really, really good. I'm a big fan of enhance techniques. Now, moving on to her traces. Let's see how her traces enhance her playstyle as well as her abilities. At Ascension 2, you get a trace called Tai Yi the Macrocosmic. When Matrix of Prescience is active, Fu Xuan will regenerate 20 extra energy when she uses her skill. So if you use Fu Xuan's skill in a rotation before her skill duration runs out, you will gain an additional 20 energy, which is a total of 50 energy. This will really help with Fu Xuan's ult rotation, as her ult costs 135 energy. Secondly, at Ascension 4, when Fu Xuan's ultimate is used, heal all allies by an amount equal to 5% of Fu Xuan's max HP plus 133. This heal will apply to all other allies, so not to Fu Xuan herself, but to your other 3 teammates. At Ascension 6, Fu Xuan gets a trace where if a target enemy applies crowd control debuffs to allies while the Matrix of Prescience is active, all allies will resist all crowd control debuffs applied by the enemy target during the current action. This effect can only be triggered once, and when the Matrix of Prescience is activated again, the number of times this effect can be triggered will be reset. So basically, this is a 100% crowd control debuff resistance that everyone will get every time Fu Xuan uses her skill, or automatically at the start of the battle when Fu Xuan uses her technique. Looking at Fu Xuan's kit, we can really see how she plays into her role as a tank that provides various support buffs for her team, namely a max HP increase buff, a crit rate increase buff, a damage reduction buff, and a crowd control resist buff, all built into her kit. She also has a reasonable amount of sustain built into her kit, with her trace providing healing for all other allies, and her talent providing self-sustain so that she doesn't die from tanking all the damage that she's siphoning from your team. Now, in terms of skill leveling priority, obviously you will want to level her skill and her talent first. Mainly her talent for damage reduction capabilities if you're using her as a tank, and you could level her skill so that the buffs that her skill provide are more potent. Now do note that leveling your skill will not increase the amount of damage that she siphons from her allies. It will only increase the max HP and the crit rate buff. So ultimately, if you're starving for money and trace materials and all of that, I recommend leveling the talent first, then the skill. Now leveling her basic attack and her ultimate will only increase the amount of damage they do, so unless you're really going for DPS Fu Xuan, you don't necessarily need to level them, so those would definitely be the lowest priority. Another really big thing that you will get from Fu Xuan is her traces. They're very important. All 3 of her ability traces are must-have, as one of them will help with her energy rotation, one of them will help with team sustain, and another one is just a really strong crowd control resist debuff. And if you've played this game, you know crowd control absolutely sucks to play into. Her small traces are actually also quite important, maybe apart from the crit rate ones, unless you're going DPS Fu Xuan. She will gain 18% max HP and 10% effect resistance from leveling up her small traces, so definitely don't forget to do those as well. Looking at Fu Xuan's kit, she has a very simple and straightforward skill rotation that will land her a solid 4-turn ult rotation, which will not really change even with the max amount of ER that you can get on her kit, which we will talk about later on within the Relic Set and Planar Ornament section. Her skill rotation should look something like skill, basic, skill, which will make her a skill point positive support, as well as land her ultimate every 4 turns for your team, giving that little extra damage boost as well as break for the team. I would just like to make a small side note here that energy regeneration on Fu Xuan has diminishing returns. Unless you're able to get her signature light cone, an ER rope with the sprightly Vonyak planar ornament set, you won't be able to reduce her ultimate rotation from 4 turns to 3 turns unless you're either skill spamming, or even without skill spamming using the previous skill rotation that I talked about, where you're going skill, auto, skill, you still need to get hit in order to make that 4-turn rotation into a 3-turn rotation. So ER in general is not that desirable on Fu Xuan. I will also quickly cover Fu Xuan's Eidolons, although realistically, unless you get a lucky draw where you pull 30 Fu Xuans and 110 pull, not happening, obviously. Most of us who are not whales will not be getting these Eidolons, so I'll just cover them quickly. Her first Eidolon increases crit damage by 30% when you apply your knowledge effect buff from your skill. So your skill now has an additional effect where it doesn't just increase max HP and crit rate, it also increases crit damage. Voila. This is quite a nice buff and increases obviously her team play as a tank, and it will increase the damage cap for your DPSs. Her E2 is that if a team member is struck by a killing blow while her skill matrix operations is active, then they will be revived with 70% of their max HP. This can only trigger once per battle. So obviously this is like a Bailu res with 70% of their max HP, but note that this only works once per battle, and it only works when matrix operations is active. Her E4 is that when other allies under matrix operations are attacked, Fu Xuan will regenerate energy. So normally when Fu Xuan siphons damage from other allies when they get hit by enemies, although she is losing HP, she does not gain energy. It's not counted as her being hit, so she doesn't get the on-hit energy that you get when you get hit by enemies. So her E4 changes that. Her E4 changes it so that no matter who's hit, Fu Xuan is regenerating energy. Now this is really big because if you add this into her ult rotation, this will lower her ult rotation by a lot. But obviously, most of us won't have E4, so we can stop dreaming. Her E6 is that once Matrix Operations is activated, it will keep a tally of the total HP lost by all team members in the current battle, and Fu Xuan's ultimate damage will increase by 200% of this tally HP loss. This tally is also capped at 120% of Fu Xuan's max HP, and the tally value will reset and reaccumulate after Fu Xuan's ultimate is used. You can think of this like Blade's ultimate. It's basically if you have the money to pull to E6 Fu Xuan, here's a little buff to your damage Fu Xuan that you're probably going to be building anyways. So the cap is at 120% of Fu Xuan's max HP, and you can think of the mechanics similar to how Blade's ultimate works as well. So next we'll be talking about Fu Xuan's light cones, what are some viable options for her, what is her best in slot, as well as what are some free-to-play options that you can use on her. Now her signature light cone will be the best for her because she scales off of max HP, unlike all the other preservation characters in the game right now, which scale off of defense. So her signature provides her with max HP, which is really nice, energy regeneration, which is okay to have but not game breaking, and a really nice damage reduction buff every time the wearer's HP is reduced, which is going to be every turn because of Fu Xuan's sucking damage siphoning ability, where as long as your ally is getting hit, you're getting hit, so your HP is going to be reduced every single time the enemy moves. So this damage reduction buff will be basically permanently active, although if it isn't, it lasts for 2 turns. And there's another buff additionally on her signature, where at the start of every wave, it will restore HP to all allies equal to 80% of their missing HP. If you don't know what a wave is, think of a Crimson Calyx or Golden Calyx. You can do a maximum of 6 waves there, so there are 6 groups of enemies and you can run it for 6 waves. And every time the group of enemy changes, that's a different wave. So you can think of it, every time you finish a wave, you get a heal for 80% of your missing HP. This is obviously nice for some forms of content. It might be useful in MOC if you're doing 3-wave MOCs where there's a mid boss and an end boss, and this heal might come in clutch for you. Now, obviously, the other defense light cones that are around, the taunt light cones, are all viable, like Landau's Choice, Moment of Victory. These are usable on Fu Xuan. They're not her best, but they definitely still work because as a tank, defense is still a viable stat to have. Obviously, you want to reduce the amount of damage you're taking. I would argue that her second best would be Texture of Memories from the Herder store, so the free-to-play 5-star preservation light cone. It's a bit more of a selfish light cone since it only provides buffs for herself and doesn't actually help her team or support the team in any other way. Which is why I actually really like Day 1 of my new life, which not only increases the wearer's defense, but also increases all type resistance for all allies. Now this light cone is a gacha 4-star light cone, so it might be harder for some people to obtain it, and if you don't have it, that's perfectly fine. You can use the Herder store light cone, or you can use any of the 3 stars that provide defense or any form of damage reduction to the wearer. Next, we will cover Fu Xuan's relic sets, and we'll see how Fu Xuan is actually a blessing to most F2P players and most of the Trailblaze power hungry, I don't have stamina to farm for anything else anymore, average Honkai Star Rail player. You see, Fu Xuan can use basically any relic set. Relic set stats are not game breaking for Fu Xuan. The main stuff that will matter will be your main stats and your substats. There's no real groundbreaking relic set stat that Fu Xuan really needs. If you're going damage Fu Xuan, you can build the quantum set, but typically if you do still want some additional stats for your Fu Xuan, I would recommend going either the Longevous Disciple, which is the max HP 2-piece, with a 2-piece of the damage reduction set, or a 2-piece of the defense set. So you can get 3 of these 2 pieces and mix them together. If you want your Fu Xuan to move a little faster, generate a few more skill points, you can go the speed set 2-piece. And you can kind of mix and match these 4 2-piece sets together and generate whatever relic set you have the best stats on. Her planar ornaments similarly are honestly quite flexible. Most of us have probably farmed up Fleet of the Ageless, so Fleet of the Ageless is an amazing set on her as well. The Broken Kill set, where it increases effect resistance and increases allies crit damage when your effect resistance is above a certain amount, is also a really good set for her, and is probably her best in slot in terms of planar ornaments. Now going over Relic's main stats and substats. I personally think that for main stats, on your body you will want HP, for your boots you want speed, for your orb you can go either quantum damage or HP or defense, your rope you can go break effect, ER, HP, defense, whatever suits you best. What's important is that you get also a decent amount of defensive substats on your relic pieces as well. I'm a really big fan of speed. If you know you're playing MOC, even though she is a tank and technically doesn't need a lot of speed to move, the additional speed in MOC will allow her to generate more skill points, allow her to provide more support for her team, allow her ult to come up a little faster, and thus contribute to her own general survivability as well as her team's survivability as well. So definitely recommend going for speed substats and speed boots where you can, and after that you would be looking for mainly HP, defense and effect resistance on your substats or main stats for all your pieces. Unless you're going DPS Fu Xuan, you can also look for some damage substats or main stats on her pieces if that's the case. But ultimately, all you need to look for is speed with HP and effect resistance or defense. And that's it. Lastly, we will look at how to build team comps for Fu Xuan. Now, Fu Xuan is basically your female Japad, your quantum Japad, in a sense. Now, Japad functions or can function as a solo defensive support for your team by providing a ridiculous shield which never breaks every time he ults. And so, as a solo defensive support, you can use Japad and just Japad and provide extra slots for harmony on nihility characters to buff your DPS, or additional slots for sub DPS perhaps. Fu Xuan works in a similar manner. She is able and has plenty of solo defensive support capability with the heal from her trace on her ultimate, and if you have her signature light cone, that's even better with the additional damage reduction and the heal per wave. And the damage reduction from her talent and from her skill in itself will usually allow most teams to run the hardest content quite easily with just Fu Xuan as your defensive support. So if you need an additional healer or you need an additional tank or defensive support, Fu Xuan will really be able to let up the slots, free up your other healers and your other defensive supports so that you can use them on different teams. The main consideration when building Fu Xuan is that she will be kind of semi skill point positive, so you need to think that she won't be generating as many skill points as certain other supports like a healer, like a Luocha or something, but she will definitely still be skill point positive, and she will have that damage reduction up the whole time. And so realistically, all you need to think of is Fu Xuan to support DPS, or Fu Xuan support DPS sub DPS, and that's what you'd be looking at for team comps. Team building for Fu Xuan, as I explained earlier, is really easy. You'd pick your hyper carry, so that would either be something like Sele, Kafka, or if you want to do Clara hyper carry, whatever you have on your account. You'd pop them in, and for your other two slots, you can do a Bronya as a support and a Tingyun as a support, or I could even swap up the Tingyun for, say, Serval as like an additional sub DPS. Another really fun team that I guess you could do when Fu Xuan comes out, if you manage to pull Lynx, you can go for Mono Quantum. I don't have Lynx, so I'm going to put Bailu. This is Lynx. Don't look too hard. So this would be like a mono quantum team that you could do into quantum content, which will give you lots and lots of quantum break, which will also slow down enemy actions quite a lot. So that might be a really nice one that you could look into as well. So there it is. That sums up the Fu Xuan guide video. As of date, she is summing up to look like a extremely strong solo defensive support that will free up your defensive capabilities for your account, letting your healers and your other preservation characters to go on different teams, and being able to solely by herself keep the whole team alive, thus raising the damage cap for your team, as well as allowing your team to do more things and have different types of compositions and different types of breaks. So really looking forward to Fu Xuan. I think she will be the savior of a lot of F2P accounts and a lot of average non-whale Honkai style accounts with her damage reduction. It will really trivialize a lot of the high damage content in the end game that is out right now for most players who can't clear. So I wish you the best of luck on your Fu Xuan pulls. Hopefully you get a cute little Lynx along with her as well. And I wish you all a wonderful day. Catch you all on the flip side.